Hey everyone, Angelo here, Hollywood filmmaker, greatest screenwriter in the history of the world, recovering hobo, sitting in my living room, which is getting some nicer and nicer little accents and lights and cat. And it's raining outside right now. And I can't help but think, whenever it rains in LA, that for the tens of thousands of homeless neighbors we have out here, this is torture. The rain is otherwise so welcome. We need it. We need to collect more rainwater. We need to have more storm drains. The streets flood. It's unpleasant for all that. But we need the water. And aside from the kind of scary, not kind of, very scary global climate change implications of all the changing weather patterns, we do need rain in LA. I was homeless. I was homeless in LA for 2 years. Before that, in Virginia for 6 months. But I was lucky. I was living in a car the whole time. And the rain was actually kind of nice for me. I say kind of. It was messy. It was gross. It was sloppy. But it was nice because for me, it was like a barrier of protection. It made it less likely for people to want to approach my car because people didn't want to be out, or people would be doing weird crap. I would sleep in parking lots where it's like a bunch of people would just come and like party at 1 in the morning. It was kind of scary and antisocial because it's like, why are you doing this? And it's not hating on them. It's like, yeah, that's just what they were doing. But there was an element of something that felt antisocial about it. Again, not evil, not bad. It's like just people a little bit lost. Now, I've been very lost, so who am I to say anything negative about it? It was just unpleasant. I could sense the like, oh, this is weird. Anyways, for so many people who are homeless, this can kill them. They can die of hypothermia. They can have other conditions which they need to be indoors to recover from or convalesce from, surgeries, all kinds of like wounds or medical like conditions that they can get treatment for in the like acute phase of sickness in the emergency room, but then they have to go out on the street and cannot properly recover. Or if they have something chronic like diabetes and like all the problems associated with that, like limb issues, circulation issues and stuff, this is a nightmare. You can just take it in terms of somebody who's like pretty healthy otherwise and just has to live with this torture of not being able to sleep. Not being able to sleep is torture. There are measures in Los Angeles now, thank goodness. Karen Bass, mayor, is pushing forward, or she's already declared a homeless state of emergency, or a state of emergency regarding the homeless trying to get housing. There's a lawsuit against the city because people are claiming that the city blocked some affordable housing. There's nuances to it all because it's like, well, do you want single family homes? Do you want apartments? What kind of houses? And I forget the details of that lawsuit. There's Measure HLA, which I've seen people going around getting signatures to support. Sign the petition. I did. And there was another one for La Casa that people were outside a grocery store getting signatures for. I signed up for that too. Nobody should have to live with this. Doesn't matter what they're doing. We can. It's so funny. We only look in the very narrow, the very short term, and say, well, a person's lazy. They're not working. They're irresponsible, or it was the fault of irresponsible parents, bad circumstances. These chauvinists, conservatives, liberals, who look at this in the very narrow term, see this and think, oh, it's so obvious. It's just mental health issues, drug issues. I can tell you, being homeless and being housed, or at least just my experience, it's not reflective of everyone's. Mental illness and drug abuse are equal opportunity. The difference is when you're homeless, trauma is exacerbated so much. Coping mechanisms you have lesser coping mechanisms. It's harder to get a good night's sleep. It was dangerous for me to sleep in certain areas while I was homeless. I won't get into all the stories, but yeah, it was scary at times. And by the time I moved, I ended my homelessness and got housed, it was getting to where it was like I was being pushed pushed by the danger of the area further and further into these corners that, like, this is unsustainable. I'm trying to find a place to sleep where nobody will bother me and the police won't bother me or neighbors, but where people out of their minds or acting out won't hurt me, or at least disrupt my sleep by screaming all through the night. And I'm like, this is a policy. We could just house everybody. We have the money. We could take some money out of that fat police budget and out of the subsidies that millionaires and billionaires and huge corporations get. They were getting a lot of them, especially under that clown Eric Garcetti, our former mayor, who for some reason is like ambassador to India now. What the fuck does he have to show for qualifications to be ambassador to India? That fucking clown. He promised to fix sidewalks, to reduce traffic deaths. They're up here. Sidewalks are in a terrible state in LA. Oh, but you go to the rich neighborhoods, they'll take care of them there. Eric Garcetti practically would have gotten on the phone to apologize to someone if they complained to 311 about a broken sidewalk. But anyways, my point is, regardless of what anyone's done in their life, regardless of their problems, housing makes sense. Housing first, not putting conditions on it, not the white bros of LinkedIn saying, well, we have to do careful studies and see, does it really help people to house them? Would it in fact be helpful to give money, or were there other factors at play? That's looking at the narrow short term, and you're confessing how gullible and easily fooled you are in saying that this isn't the function of a broader system in which profits are prioritized at the expense of people's well-being, and that this system necessarily works like that we don't count homeless people as part of like a well-functioning society. It's like, well, profits are up, things are better, things are more efficient. Efficient at what? Efficient at slave labor with the threat dangled over you that no HR of any company will ever tell you is dangling under your feet if you're fired. They won't say, yeah, we live in a cruel, barbaric system in which you can die on the street if we decide that your position is no longer required in this company, or if you've been speaking up about workplace issues, discrimination, and we just don't appreciate that and it's a liability. They won't say that. Again, they don't even have to think it. It's just a matter of putting down on a spreadsheet whose positions could be eliminated in order to maximize shareholder profits, maximize CEO profits, whatever the case. Doesn't matter if the workplace isn't functioning as well. It just needs to maximize profits. And it's all like this cover story, this game for how we inflict cruelty on people and justify it as us, the housed, having a higher status or being more deserving or something than homeless people. And I'm like, well, I've been both. I'm exactly what a homeless person looks like. I was homeless for 2.5 years, and I almost feel sorry for people who haven't been homeless in a way. I'm like, oh, you needed to do that to gain your character the way I did. This strong discipline I have to be up this early, to have been working out, to eat right, even though my cheeks are a little fatter. You can tell I've got some water retention from snacking over the weekend. But we could help ourselves so much. And I include homeless people in that. That's ourselves too. But if you housed people just want to admit to yourself who you really are, you would say, yeah, I just hate certain Americans. I want cruelty on them. Now that's interesting because a lot of conservatives will say, yeah, it's a shame that people are on the street, especially they'll bring up veterans homeless on the street. But when it's time to do anything about it, essentially their attitude is like, oh, not like that, like not help them like that, like get them housing. Let's do those feel-good stories of somebody with extraordinary talent on the street being recognized and getting a GoFundMe and being housed, not addressing their deeper issues, or not addressing the fact that this system grinds people up into that situation. For so many people, it comes down to change would make me uncomfortable. I don't want change. I don't want to think about it. And I can say that when I see conservatives and liberals criticize the idea. They're lashing out their discomfort, almost like you snatched them from mommy's tit and they can't suck her milk. And it just makes them uncomfortable. I want milk, mommy's milk. I see myself, my past self in them, in that that's who I was. I believed that stuff too. I don't know to what extent I could fully embrace it in a way, but I was a conservative. I believed for a time, like, if you're homeless, you deserve to be homeless. And of course, I didn't realize how much I was sucking up to a system that doesn't give a shit about me either. And how easily uh, I would be able to see, although it took a long time, like just how barbaric this system is. And I'm still seeing it and still learning about it. And we could just house everybody. We have the housing, we have the ability, we could design better neighborhoods so that people don't have to pay so much to live in certain places. We don't need all this parking. We could reduce traffic expenses, everything as far as how cars are a financial burden on us. If we build more dense cities, more quality housing, more public transit. But I think for a lot of people, you just hate homeless people. Like, you can't admit it. You don't want to be accountable to it. It's so funny. I'm like, conservatives say, people who criticize certain things about America. It's not that conservatives won't criticize America. Oh, they hate large parts of America. But the idea of housing homeless people makes them so mad. They say it's barbaric that homeless people are on the street. They say that liberals or leftists just want to romanticize homelessness. But the implication really for them is like what Rick Caruso, that billionaire prick, was clearly messaging to in his mayoral campaign, which he lost soundly against Karen Bass, which is, yeah, we just think homeless people should be banished, should be jailed, should be put in the desert, should be vaporized, basically, or should just dematerialize into the air. They're just a blight and disgusting, and they make me feel gross. Instead of just like taking that supposed conservative responsibility and values and say, well, who are we that we chose this? Why is it that they're homeless? Just why? You don't have to think anything in particular after looking into it, but you have to find things that make you uncomfortable, even if they just make you angry because that you feel they're wrong. About the history of racism in this country, racist housing policy, racist transportation policy, the legal system, job discrimination, disinvestment in certain neighborhoods, not just black and brown neighborhoods, but for poor white people, the capitalist system has no use for them either. But poor white people are taught to hate poor black and brown people and blame them for their problems instead of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and the politicians and lobbyists. I hate saying it like that because it starts to sound like a right-wing framing of things. But it's just an ordinary, everyday, casual stupidity, arrogance, and selfishness. The idea that we're never going to be held accountable for what we do in creating these barbaric policies that deprive people of housing while simultaneously making housing very expensive. I can afford it, but so what? So in other words, I want to be as irresponsible and gullible as these conservative dopes who think, well, I made it. Doesn't that mean things work? Well, I'm not well unless I'm accountable to who I am and what I put into the world. And I know I'm lying when I say that, like, yeah, the world's working the way it should. If you're poor, it's your fault. I'm like, there are all kinds of people who are housed, who do all kinds of things, and maybe some of you conservatives, by rights, according to your own conception of them, should be homeless for the stuff you do. It's amazing how many conservatives I've seen seemingly love the cops, but have had major problems with cops in their lives. But that's that cognitive dissonance of, yeah, up close, I want human dignity and respect and human rights. Oh, but when I don't have to face people, when I get to see images on the media that make me angry about black and brown people, oh yeah, get them, go get them. But the people in my life, oh yeah, I want them treated with respect. I want to be treated with human rights. I don't want to be treated the way I want other people to be treated. So my proposition, I guess, is this. For you conservatives out there, you seem to hate a lot of Americans. You hate a lot of homeless people. You think they're criminals. You can't tell the difference between a homeless person and a criminal. You don't seem to have a problem with the biggest type of crime in our country, wage theft by employers. So, okay. You support crime. That's fine. You're a bunch of soft, limp-wristed crime supporters because you feel sympathy for these rich entrepreneurs and their legal protectors and the police who protect capital, who will track you down and hunt you for shoplifting a little bit, but it won't help you. Like, we have no emergency system to help you if you're hungry, but we have an emergency police response if you steal something when you're hungry. I suggest making it so nobody has to steal things to survive. But, I know a lot of you conservatives, you hate Americans, you hate a lot of America, and that's fine. That's your protected freedom of speech, freedom of expression. You want homeless people on the street, you want them to die, you want the homeless youth that are out there to suffer. That's fine. I just think if you hate Americans so much, you should leave. Leave the country if you hate it so much. There are plenty of organizations you can join if you hate Americans so much. I have to whisper because my roommates are sleeping. Still, I should be doing other stuff right now, writing. But if you hate Americans so much, that's fine. Just leave the country. Because it seems like you can't stand it when Americans might get some dignity and might be able to have housing. And the funny thing, too, is your discomfort at things you're not familiar with. If everybody was able to be housed, if we had a policy that just housed people with social housing, taxpayer-funded housing, community land trusts, or whatever the case, broke up corporate-owned housing, you'd be so comfortable with it and used to it, you wouldn't think about it for the most part. That just shows how gullible you are. It makes you so angry when you hear people talk about race and housing. It's interesting that when you decode what people are talking about when they hate homeless people, I've read a statistic. Black people make up 8% of LA's population, but 60% of the homeless population. And for conservatives, they're so narrow in their focus. All they can see, look at, like, they're lost. All they can see is this small snapshot and see, well, that just means black people are whatever negative thing they have to say. I'm like, you could just open that window a little bit, look at 100 years of history and see the policies in LA that have devastated black neighborhoods, destroyed them, literally destroyed their homes to build urban highways when they wouldn't do it for the white neighborhoods, destroyed public transportation when transportation, I've seen it said, is the number one factor in upward mobility financially. So you have lack of public transportation in poorer black and brown neighborhoods, over-policing, the increased police interactions. By the way, you could look up, if you care about Americans, that's the thing. If you don't care about, if you hate Americans, that's fine. But how police interactions go, how the court system does not favor good outcomes for marginalized people, and how it's not just one individual person, it's a whole system that makes people poor, keeps them poor. You got a criminal record, harder to get a job. The jobs aren't that good anyways, and police interactions can be violent, traumatic, and most of them, the bad ones, never get reported. By the way, police so often, and in jails and prisons, engage in physical abuse, medical neglect, sexual abuse. If conservatives are so of the belief that they have moral superiority to leftists who support crime, why aren't you saying, at the very least, yeah, we support this prison system, we support tough crime laws, but we need strict and stringent oversight of the people who enforce these laws, because otherwise, what do? When you give people a bunch of power in a system that they're unaccountable for? You're going to get the ones who should not be having power. And it's not just about the individuals. It's the indoctrination you get when you join the police and when you're in the legal system, that fundamentally, at least, you can't change it. But also, if you speak out against it, it's not that you're doing something wrong, you're all wrong. And the police will crush whistleblowers, as we've seen. So you'd think if conservatives are against those kinds of abuse, they'd speak up about it. I guess they support that. They support crime. It would rile up their feelings to speak against that, because the facts make for a very awkward appraisal of yourself if you have to face them. So, feelings more important than facts to conservatives, I guess. So that's my message. Thanks for watching, everyone. I've been doing a lot of screenwriting and bike riding. It's a lot of fun. The rain's dying down now. I'm sure to pick up later. And I'm going to get moving, or get writing. All right, everybody. Do something you enjoy. Read a book. Watch quality films. Quality films. Come on. There's plenty of classics out there you can watch, and new good ones. And let me know what you think. Bye.